Hello, Americans. Hello, MSNBC. You guys have been lied to by FBI and by police departments and by state police inviting forensics. For example, involved with names that have planted and names tied to them who planted evidences on all sides of my street. Also, relative to people putting fake motivations since founding, where things like politics are recorded as actually recorded. So we'll refer to this as hyper evidentially recorded black pupils. We know that the sciences have been abridged, and that's how we were told to communicate it. We had lawyers still leaving out exceptions in exception nature, planting fake motivations, also preemptively, all sides in criminal and civil cases, their lawyers, their family members, the courts, even the judges, their family members, the prosecutors, other ones at the same time off the state judicial branch offices, things and names, conjunction and conjunctive and adjacent to it. Same thing with state corrections offices of Connecticut, but this is interstates. This is where, for example, the coverage of the trials. The Facebook has roles with various networks still with wire crime acts and methods, and then with pretending that's personal. In other words, increasingly, then they have to pretend other for how everyone was and is used remotely, including our standing chair people on statutes like the Racketeering Influence and Corrupt Organizations Act. The former standing chairperson, Robert Luskin, the former standing chairperson on the Racketeering Influence and Corrupt Organizations Act, as roles with people from Weathersfield, Connecticut intelligence families that I don't know at all, and ones that I only know because they planted evidence just to make it look like they knew me. And as their roles with people that have been attaching little kids and their families to whole fake transcripts and through the mail as doctors, whole fake conversations and ties to themselves and their family members, a whole bunch of family members with the Institute of Living in Hartford, Connecticut, on the campus of Hartford Hospital. They have roles with the name Cololo and DeMora and Aiella, with mayors and with their family members, also with O'Brien family members, with the intelligence community, foreign and domestic. They have roles with leaders of the kids, and they're hiding behind their roles with how all our countries are shared on and off campuses here and there, including fire campuses and medical campuses. Fire campuses and medical campuses and their family members run into Hartford Hospital with high lab aggressions, where and how they are, that's part of how they are used remotely, criminally foreign influence / hyper-criminally foreign influence. And we're going to have to discern that because nature shows us that, the needs for that, when we appreciate the fact-driven nature, predicate acts with facts method, that assign black and white to mean other than they did, sickly distinctly north and south. They had slavery entrenched north and south before America's founders were born, sickly distinctly though. And the North had rules with slavery right up to the end of the Civil War because they were still being counter-extorted, forced to begin to appreciate the Constitution unabridged. But we have not gotten to its appreciation unabridged. And this bridging method was in this sophistication here before. Our founders were born for this, so they could have debates about the nature of sophistication as non-debates, but and not pretended other, which requires criminally self-value, criminally foreign influence, fact-driven nature, quality / IES, aspect / IES, in nature. See criminal insidiousness nature. I'm not a lawyer. Again, we could use the hyper-evidential to show how nature shows us how that criminally foreign influence readings of statutes and precedents were our manifest since founding, where they backed every name. And then further, how everyone's forced to be a database identity of relativity as grounds hyper additional voicings in names, uses, employments by nature, but now as systems tactical ulterior from nature, but pretending other. Otherwise, that body is sensed. Well, that's what science says. Science says that we're supposed to be honest about the extortion of George Washington. To be honest about that, if anyone was honest about that, it would have revealed. Also, we were supposed to be honest about how he agreed to use to help James Madison and the founders behind him, and to use his plan. And then they had the counter extort at 13 locations within more than 13 colonies, and everyone was enslaved. And everyone was where and how nature was demonstrating that to everyone. Those demonstrations also contained demonstrations of the human fact, human nature breaching method, effectively employed by the breaching method instead through our own, as names A through Z, here, there, everywhere the species body is, effectively employed to be blamed on other things, others, ourselves. And then identities individually grouped and together made reliant upon that, with the relativity of why I'm saying fact, human nature, quality aspects of nature. So on a mass scale, so they have readings of statutes with lawyers of the FBI and lawyers of Wethersfield Police who are involved with other police departments and intercedes. The difference of that too, like where they go back and forth with cases and pretend things are allegations. That's why how they did that already. Then they were shown they need to hide what's actually recorded across social media. Facebook has people involved. There's the founding location in America with George Washington, where he had the counter extort at 13 locations. Connecticut was one of them. And this counter extortion was also relative to being able to win the last battle of the Revolutionary War, where all sides were telling lies on paper and using truths to hide it, because that was forced since before everyone was born, including the countries, including the groupings, had to be entertained to defend themselves as modern countries already. Humanity's names, individual or group difference /S. Excuse me. And simultaneously, the species body's volumes difference /S from the other species body volumes. Nature tells us to demonstrate this. If we had done that, we would have discerned. Well, the law's identity is in here too. In other words, black pupils. The law, people say, oh, I'm not an expert on that, especially when people say I'm not an expert on mental health. That's because the lead up to every science shows that they are criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions wrong. And it wasn't their fault. They're blaming other things other than themselves. The breaching method needs that. It needs other things other than themselves. Besides the breaching method, for why? Victims / hyper victims are only allowed to speak. And in other words, speaking without leaving out the fact that countries A through Z have abridged constitutions, including our own. We have replaced right through our schools the words that the sciences were supposed to teach. And then they need to keep the causes of that, blame the other things other than themselves. That's why the weird phenomenon of all the confessions communicated while people are saying other as collusions, like when they're countering men or boys being in girls' rooms and girls' bathrooms. And with the sports. And that's sustained, though, too, no, because it has rules of war crime acts and methods. There's a Pat Vincent I don't know at all. And there's a in other words, I never had a conversation when I was in a class for 2 days. I left it. he's involved with people that were between each of the campuses I went, roles with various natures of federal criminals before they got caught, overt criminal enterprises, and private ones who had timed roles with interbranch family members, sticking fake ties and fake natures of ties to me and me to others into databases. I found out it's way worse. And there were/are more medical offenders, including ones with badges intercities, with the principal child abusers campus, and with the campuses at Sandy Hook, and with the courts involved. So there are ways to say, oh well, this is how justice comes. Then you go to the court, and in other words, they're preventing justice at location/S. The suburbs were designed tactically denatured to measure and maintain where there is possession of ourselves as systems tactical ulterior from that one which is hyper native. For example, where and how nature itself shows us the Native Americans are distinctly our founders from the founders behind and as James Madison and George Washington. And so how they were extorted, counter extorted, and why they had to be, and how that crazy measure sensed through our own system, our own meaning humanity, at spots A through Z, as names A through Z, as differences, as different/S A through Z. Those are laws that were employed to have entertained where you can't entertain that and afford to be, let alone to protract. Short words with convictions, with theory properly, let alone convictions. And we all have to make theories and convictions. And more and more, too, because of the effective abridgment self-value of our sciences each. Someone must teach. Free speech. So I was attached to fake words and conversations and locations with WFSB as one of the reasons why and how through time we've had reports of and we've had recorded work, forced sustained child abuses and collusion/S, because the differences of the guilt as overt criminal enterprises, private ones, the interbranch family members, and the intelligence tied to them, their state offices, like the state corrections offices, like the state judicial branch offices. Also names and ones associated with conjunctions and adjacent to this were also involved with wire crime acts and methods, with the Wethersfield police and with the state police. And these are ones interstates involved with this, foreign and domestic military. The people that went to each campus I went to have ties between each other. And they had roles with other people putting fake things in databases. And then people that never have conversations that were next to each other. They're trying to set that up to make debates where they employ all sides in criminal and civil cases, and the interbranch putting sequence shifts and fake things into databases and fake motivations, because there are a whole bunch of different countries. And this breaching method, when it keeps them, in other words, it keeps them all directed like our own to hide roles with that. Koreans and Americans have roles with Harvard Hospital and with all the campuses. UConn has roles with Harvard Hospital. And all these campuses, and like these are medical campus, it has an Institute of Living on the Harvard Hospital campus, where it has employed already since founding. Like Duke University also has a Leahy family and a Violet family involved with former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, with his co-defendants, with military people on off UPS, on off post office spots, on off all sides of cases, on off judges' homes, next to their homes. In other words, this keeps a certain type of victim/hyper victim to keep responses of it effectively employed, or non-responses effectively employed means to measure and maintain. Criminally use/s of criminally foreign influence readings of statutes and precedents. Manifest where and how. Descriptions of all instances and names. And defenses of, in other words, for example, morality descriptions, or and like the causes of the lack of morality, where the science behind the words of freedom, when it looks at New York City, or when it looks at the suburbs were designed tactically denatured to need, let alone New York City, where also they have hyper. Additionally, where nature shows our names to be grouped, bound, and not simultaneously, its way. In other words, we have that tactical terrier, where our systems are uses of our names, A through Z, its difference /S, A through Z, use tactical terrier from how and why. In other words, we need to discern this way. Many pray. The rules are a bridge, though. So we have to address the rules, federal rules, crime methods, federal rules, crimes, acts, and methods, federal rules of evidence, crimes. So, in other words, on a mass scale, as the people who are experts on such, it becomes simultaneously discernible that we can discern this. That's why it's necessary also to understand how those same names had overt criminal enterprises and private ones. It had the kids and the adults, the difference of mayors, and the difference of that as their family members or other kids and adults who work for them, right next to them. Okay, we'll address these stuff. Thank you.